to your health now this morning. A new, astonishingly realistic robotic patient simulator used in medical training was just unveiled to the world at the Los Angeles Convention Center. So check this out. The simulator, called HAL S5301, listens and then verbally responds, tells you what's wrong, and can even be hooked up to any kind of medical equipment for diagnosis. Wow. HAL's artificial intelligence and robotics are turning heads at the International Meeting for Simulation in Healthcare at the Convention Center. Jimom Archetto of Gaumard Scientific is HAL's spokesman, and he joins us from the Convention Center to tell us more. Good morning to you. How you doing, Jim? Why is HAL getting so much attention?
Hey, good morning, Melvin. Good morning, Giselle. And HAL is getting so much attention. You introduced him perfectly, Melvin. And as you can see, he is surrounded by those very real monitors, which provide real diagnostic information for doctors, nurses, paramedics. We've turned them off here because, as you know, monitors have alarms and things. And so we've turned them off here, but they are very real. Here's the real reason why HAL is getting so much attention. You can certainly see his realism, but also he is the first simulator in the industry that can actually be used to emulate symptoms of stroke. So you described his vocalizations, and HAL can actually listen to me as well. So I'm going to go through a little scenario here for you, and you'll see exactly how HAL can listen to me and respond. So HAL, can you please turn your head to the right? Thank you, HAL. Can you please turn your head to the left? Thank you, HAL. Can you please raise your right arm? What? Thank you, HAL. To raise your right arm? Thank you, HAL. And can you please grip my hand? Very good. Thank you, HAL. You're doing great today. That's never been done in the industry before, that a simulator, as you described, using AI, can actually respond to my vocalizations and respond physically.
I have just met my perfect man. Forget Match.com. That's what I'm talking about.
He does exactly as he's told. Is that what you're trying to say?
Exactly.
Dang.
Better than a dog now. So let me ask you this. So obviously used for diagnosis. What else can, I mean, he's spectacular and it's so lifelike, but how does he help like someone, because so much of diagnosis is nuance. You can have a list of, symptoms, but you have to have that wisdom. So where does that kind of connect?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Giselle. In fact, he is operated remotely from a tablet. And what can take place is he can be programmed with scenarios for critical thinking skills for those doctors, nurses, paramedics. So HAL will actually learn through the AI that you described at the onset, and he will learn and actually perform some of these clinical conditions and relate them. So the caregivers are going to have to figure out what's going on diagnostically with those monitors, with the way he's responding, his pupils dilating, his face turning, his facial features might be changing a little bit. It is very nuanced, and they're going to have to pick that up. And that's where those critical thinking skills come in.
And why is it so important that, doctors, nurses that work with a lifelike simulator like HAL?
Yeah. It's so important, Melvin, because they really need to get involved with their patients. And, you could have a department store mannequin that does nothing, but really that doesn't provide any educational value. Here, you can practice basic skills on HAL, such as an IV or an injection, as we've seen through COVID. But at the same time, those critical thinking skills are so important to allow them to practice and practice. So by the time they get to a real patient, they're fluent with exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to treat that patient.
And because of the pandemic, all the medical education has relied much more on advanced simulation training. Why is that?
It's so important, Giselle, because at the onset of the pandemic, as you know, there were restrictions as to who could enter a hospital. So much training for medical residents, medical students, and nursing students was their clinical training in the hospital, but they weren't deemed essential employees at that time. So they had to figure out a way, how are we going to provide additional training for these people who need it so desperately? And that's where simulation came in. They could take a simulator such as HAL and really practice those skills when they weren't allowed to get into a hospital.
Wow, how brilliant. The future is now. Give HAL my number. You can diagnose me.
Oh, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Dang, girl. Come on now.
Daily Group.